We have finally made it to season number 3 of the Kansas Dynasty here on EA College Football 25. Our season starts at home, under the lights, renewing the rivalry with Missouri. Before we get to today's game, though, we've got some housekeeping to go through. We're going to run down the roster, and I'm going to introduce you guys to many of the new contributors, young players who I think are going to have much bigger roles this season. We're going to briefly talk about recruiting, briefly talk about the rest of the college football landscape, along with what our official non-conference schedule will look like for this season. I'm really excited about going into the year because I think our roster is kind of in the midst of a turning point. The Season 1 and Season 2 teams were very senior-driven. Over half of our starters in each of the last 2 years were seniors. That's not the case this year. I think we only have 8 or 9 seniors on the roster, and half of them are really not going to play much at all. So the current group of guys we have is going to be the core of this roster for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So you better get used to these players because hopefully many of them are going to be sticking around for quite a while and will be the building blocks throughout the next few seasons. I expect recruiting to be quite a bit harder than last year, in large part because we're not coming off a national championship appearance. And as I scrolled through all the positions, there's a lot less players interested in us than last year. There's a good number of top 300 prospects, but looking at the 4 and 3 stars down the board, there's just not that many players in the country who are interested in coming here. Before we talk about recruiting a little bit later today, I want to go through our schedule for this season. Of course, as I've talked about since the start of the series, I want to continue the rivalry with Missouri. We beat them last year, and we're looking to beat them again here at home. Our other 2 non-conference games will be against the Lizard teams. Week 2 at UAB, Week 3 at Florida. I went through the rosters, and I felt like both of those teams would be really fun matchups for us. The game against Florida should be especially interesting with DJ Lagway and company. I'm also intrigued by our in-conference schedule that includes 4 consecutive home games towards the middle of the year. A gold mine for an opportunity to have recruits visit. This is what the media ranking looks like to open up the year. We are not in the top 25, but we're not far off. We're currently the first team out, so if we do beat Missouri, we'll probably be in the top 25 going into week 2. Clemson is the consensus number 1, which surprises me a little bit. They've lost a lot of guys. 3 top 7 picks. Their quarterback, Cade Klubnik, went number 1 overall to the Browns in this year's NFL draft, which of course was uploaded last night within the Broncos franchise. The Big 12 conference this year is staying the same as it was last year. I've talked about potentially adding Clemson and Florida State, but the ACC has some good things going on right now. I'm not opposed to adding those schools in the future, but for this year, they will not be joining us. This is what the All-American teams look like going into the year. We do not have anybody on the first or second team, but we do have some All-Conference guys. On the first team, nobody on offense, but we do have a couple of defensive players. Dakaius Brinkley, hoping for a big year from him after a disappointing sophomore campaign, along with linebacker Samuel Mpemba. On the second team, offensive guard James Livingston. He played right tackle last year. We're kicking him inside, along with Taylor Davis, a first-time starter who had a major boost in terms of his overall rating in the offseason. Let's go through red shirts now. Some of these will likely change throughout the year, but for right now, we're going to redshirt around half of the freshman class. The most notable name here being running back Reed Sharp, the second highest ranked prospect who we signed in last year's class. The biggest reason for this was his decision in the offseason to flip from us to Minnesota to then rejoin us right before the season started. He missed spring ball, he missed valuable time to learn the playbook, and because of that, he's going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of his development. We're going to get him on the field this year because he's a really good player, but it will not be above the other true freshman running backs who we have on the roster, despite the fact that they were ranked lower as recruits. As we go through the roster, I'm going to explain what we're going to be doing at every position group to start the year, giving some analysis and highlights on many of the newer contributors, either freshmen who are now going to get the opportunity to play, or other guys who just have not really been contributors prior to this year. And again, as I mentioned, it's a very young group. Over half of the roster now is players who we have recruited over the last 2 years. There's only 8 or 9 seniors on the roster, and a lot of them are not really going to play this year. As we look at the quarterback position, we've got a couple shiny new freshmen with Sean Pullard and Kerry Chosen, but we're not going to have a quarterback battle to start the year. Clyde Poole had a good freshman year. He had a good offseason. He's ready to rock and roll, but he has hit his ceiling. He's not going to get any better than what he is currently, and you would think at some point one of Pullard, Chosen, or Rainbolt, who all have star development, will pass him at some point, but not yet. The running back room has a lot of intriguing players, but there's no clear alpha dog. Johnny Thompson Jr. is the only guy with real experience, but he could easily be passed up by one of these younger players. Redshirt freshman Jazir Tolbert, I think, is going to have a much bigger role this year. He has an extremely exciting blend of power and explosiveness. Harry Stewart III, the redshirt sophomore, 98 speed. I'm excited to use that in action. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to give these true freshmen some looks over sharp for now, and that starts with Ty Lord. He's a 5'10", 190-pound scat back who's a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. I'm curious to see how he runs in between the tackles. Along with him, we've got another 4-star in Cornell Teamer, the native of Miami. Similar build, 5'10", 190. I think he's a little bit more explosive than Ty Lord. I think his ceiling is a little bit higher, but the two of them for right now are pretty much equal. The receiving room is led by Mario Maddox, a JUCO guy who we redshirted last year. He's a smaller guy who's got really impressive speed and short area quickness who will mostly play the slot. On the outside, I'm looking for one of these true freshmen to step up. Could it be Amani Law, 6'2", 96 speed, from Duncanville High School, one of the powerhouses of high school football. And then along with him, you've got Rajon Jones, 6'1", from Washington, D.C. I think he's a little bit more polished than Jones in terms of his hands and his route running. I don't think he's quite got the athletic traits, though. There's the redshirt junior, Keaton Kubeka, who's been developing on the roster for a few years. There's the redshirt freshman Dorian Pepper, who had limited snaps last year, but had this big touchdown late in the first half in the TCU game. Pepper's another guy who doesn't have elite athleticism, but he got a lot better across the board this offseason. His rating went up by 9, I believe. So he'll have an opportunity to show what he's made of. The tight end position, we're going to rock with Isaiah Lamore, one of the few returning starters from last year's offense. The left tackle will be Spencer Fano, the Utah transfer. We've got a few guys in the mix at right tackle, but I'm going to go with Calvin Clements for now. I think he's got the size and athleticism that best suits what we're looking for there. James Livingston shifts inside, the only returning starter on the offensive line. He'll play left guard. Terrell Butts, the true freshman, at center, and Amir Herring at right guard. But I would look out for freshman Benji Trahan as a guy who could overtake any of these players if they're struggling. I'm excited about the duo of Dekias Brinkley and Seth Jennings rushing the quarterback, but we've got some intriguing young players. I think Kerry Folk is a guy who could see some playing time this year. Along with him, you've got sophomores Graydon Grimes and Champ Tompkins. Maybe Devin Murphy, we get something out of him. Trevion Ford will likely play a lot inside, along with Marcus Calvin and Afia Kiaho. Samuel Mpemba returns at linebacker. He'll be splitting duties with a few guys, including Mo Nwokeji, the redshirt freshman, who really didn't play much at all last year, but his rating went up by 14. The sophomore Devontae Crispin returns. True freshman Santiago Herrera is another guy who I think we're going to get a big impact from. An impressive athlete. He can blitz. He can stop the run. Not a liability in coverage either. And of course, we have Damani Maxon as well, the safety who primarily plays in the box. At corner, Caleb Purdy returns to the slot. And to open the year, we're going to have Basil Wilson and the true freshman right here, Quantavius Landers, the 5-star, start the year on the outside. If they struggle, I would look for Brian Dilworth and Jalen Todd to start over them. At safety, we've got a couple freshmen in the mix, including Marcus Ash, more of a rangy free safety, who we're going to line up at a few different spots on the defense. He'll sit behind Taylor Davis, a new starter replacing Devin Dye. Brandon Hines is a player I'm really excited about. As I've mentioned, the all-proclaimed Marvin Grant role at strong safety. Javon McIntyre did it last year, and I think Hines will be able to hold that spot for a few years, with our kicker and punter from last year both returning. As for recruiting, as I mentioned, there's not that many guys interested in us. A handful of top 300 prospects. There's one 5-star expressing interest. But as I went through the positions, there's just really not that many guys who want to come here. So a lot of the players we have thrown on the board are not overly interested. We have 2 5-stars, 1 3-star, and everybody else here is a 4-star. Obviously, I don't expect to land all of these guys, and as we look at these 30-plus 4-stars, if we land maybe a third of them, I think that would be a win. But nonetheless, we're going to hope for the best, and that starts with scouting. There are 2 quarterbacks on the board, Carl Willingham and Rajon Rondo. If you know, you know. Both of these guys are pretty interested in us. I like where the QB room sits at for the future, but I would be doing a due diligence if I didn't at least throw these guys on and see what they're all about. They're the only 2 quarterbacks in the nation who have any interest in us, so they're the only 2 who are going to be here. Carl Willingham is a gem. Okay. Looks pretty athletic, 6'5", 221. And then Chris Paul from St. Charles, Missouri. He will not be a gem or a bust. Both of these guys are kind of similar. They're both very big, 6'5", 200-plus pounds. Both of them are quite fast. Willingham has the edge there. Both of them have fairly strong arms. I'm intrigued by the combination of size and athleticism that they both bring to the table, and I'm definitely interested in keeping them on the board. We don't have a lot of offensive skill position players. We've got a ton of talent on the roster at these positions, so I'm going to look at running back Greg Ayu. He's a gem. And then Nicholas Scotland Williamson. This is one of my favorite players on the board. 5'10", 230-pound gem with 95 speed as a power back. I am very intrigued by him. The only receiver, Rasheem Diggs, ends up being a bust. I'm still going to go after him, and receiver is not as big of a need as it was last year with the additions of Law and Jones. Edward Brzezinski is also a bust at tight end. He's a blocking tight end who I view more as a role player anyway. Jaden Adai is a bust. That's a disappointment. Top 50 prospect in the nation at offensive tackle who has a lot of interest in us. Kiki Hall is neither. Frank Story, another top 50 guy, is also a bust. We're not getting too lucky with the offensive lineman. Hopefully Caleb Wilson can change our fortunes, and he does. A gem. So there's a win. And then we've got 2 centers, starting off with Mike Jefferson. He's got quite a bit of interest in us. Neither a gem or a bust. And then the other center, Kion Ferroti. He does not have a lot of interest in us, but his deal breaker is an A+. That's why I decided to add him. Unfortunately, he's a bust. A number of the other players throughout the board are not interested in us, who do not have as highly regarded deal breakers, so I'm hoping we have a good chance with Kion. And then we get to the 5-star defensive end. Afa G from Lenexa, Kansas. Local guy. It looks like he does not mind staying in the area, given that we're second only behind Kansas State. I would love to shove Kansas State into a locker again, and looking at G's ratings, I think he looks like a really good player. Jadarius Elam is a bust. We've gotten a lot of busts recently here on the offensive and defensive lines. Josh Metz is neither a gem or a bust. Kyrie Brower is a gem. This guy looks really good. Definitely a guy I'm going to try to go after quickly. Sam Banowich looks pretty solid as well, 6'4", nearly 300 pounds. And then I wanted to add a number of defensive tackles. We still need some talent here. Greg Von Oelhoffen is a gem. His skill set looks pretty good, so he's a guy we're going to go after pretty hard. Whoa, pause. Dylan Countess is a bust, unfortunately, and then Sam Chong ends up being a gem. So we go 2 for 3 at defensive tackle. Moving over to linebacker, I've got a lot of linebackers on the board. Jabari Dinkins looks pretty solid. Leon Ibrahim ends up being a gem. I like this skill set. 90 speed at 6 foot, nearly 240 pounds. Bo Muse ends up being neither. Another guy, though, of good size and athleticism. Taylor Kotovides from Arlington, Texas is up next. He as well is neither a gem or a bust. And then Donovan Gossett from Woods Cross, Utah. He is neither, but for being the 467th prospect, I really like his skill set. We're going to go after Gossett a lot. And then in the secondary, there's a lot of corners on the board, including 5-star Quinn Coatney, the 7th-ranked prospect in the nation, one of 2 5-stars on the board. He doesn't have a lot of interest in us, but I figure, why not give it a shot? Greg Ricks ends up being neither, as does Cornell Abreu. And then moving down here, plenty more corners to go. Manny Duck is a bust. Unfortunate. Jaron McGlynn is neither. And then we've got 5 safeties here. I wanted to add some more safety depth. Manu Tsoilolo is a bust. Santiago Chavez is neither. Cordell Hurley is also neither. Maurice Waddy, a top 40 player in the class, is a bust. And then Tyler Leckerkirker ends up being a gem. Obviously, it's better to be a gem than a bust, but we're going to keep these busts on the board and still try to go after them, but maybe we'll be a little less willing. I only had enough hours to offer, I think it was 11 or 12 scholarships, so I wanted to focus on guys who I felt like needed the points early, along with players who I just wanted to prioritize in general because I really liked their skill sets. One of those guys was linebacker Jabari Dinkins. He's down to 8. Unfortunately, we're not in the 8, so it sucks that we wasted a scholarship on him. Markel Jocelyn will replace him on the board. He's a defensive end. He is neither a bust or a gem. So from there, we're going to start by offering everybody scholarships. Now that that's done, we've got to figure out how we're going to use these points. Many of these guys were already moving up the list, especially players who we offered scholarships to, such as the quarterback Carl Willingham. So I want to be very strategic with how we use our points. These are the guys interested in us. The common theme is I'm not putting points into them this week. My strategy throughout this season is basically to try to stay competitive in these recruiting battles until we make it into the top 5, and then that's when we go all in, except for certain players like Kyrie Brower and Leon Ibrahim, who I really want to focus on targeting early and appear to have a lot of interest. Otherwise, I want to put as many points into as many guys as possible. Since we have a bye week here in week 0, we're going to simulate the week. We're going to talk about some of the scores across the nation in week 0 in just a moment. But first, we are going to go through another week of recruiting. So going into week number 1, I'm not expecting anything overly crazy here. So for the most part, we're still in the mix for all of these battles, except for one, cornerback Manny Duck, who I'm okay with because he was a bust, and it seems like there's a lot of big schools going after him anyway. So I think having him off the board isn't really the worst thing in the world. We're going to replace him with a 3-star, but I wouldn't mind adding more smaller, shiftier receivers. I like Mario Maddox, but we're only going to have him for 2 years. So Dakota Cornelius is the guy we're going to look at. He is a 3-star, 5'10", 180. He's a gem. There aren't many big schools who he has interest in, so I'm hoping we'll be able to flood some resources into him and ultimately land him. This is how we're going to use our points here for week 2. With these guys who have narrowed their lists down to 8, that's when I want to start putting points into them. And then again, once they make it to 5, that's where we really have to make a decision whether we want to go all in or do we want to maybe slow down and take this guy off the board. A number of players after week 1 have already narrowed their lists down to 5, including some of the guys who we put a lot of early points into, such as Kyrie Brower and Leon Ibrahim, who we had the lead for. Jaden Adai were 4th, but I think we're right in the mix there. And then Tyler Leckerkirker, we were in 7th last week. Now we're in 2nd, so we've made up a lot of quick ground. These are the results in week 0. We're not going to dive into any of the games because none of them were all that interesting. There's no ranked teams here. I do want to mention a couple of things. One, Missouri, who we're about to play in around 3 minutes. They beat Troy 26-21, 3 passing touchdowns for their senior quarterback, Sam Horn. Troy was good last year, no shame in only beating them by 5. I also want to mention UMass. I got some comments about them being in the MAC. I forgot to switch them. However, I had an extra save file back in the custom conferences week, so I have moved UMass to the MAC, and that's where they'll be this year. Those are some of the headline matchups in week 1. We're going to go over the highlights in those games later. As for the AP poll, there's no changes since no ranked teams played. No changes in the Heisman watch either. As for the players of the week, Sean Wiggins from Virginia Tech and Jahari Nelson, a linebacker from UMass. So that brings us here to week 1. The rivalry ensues. The border war. Missouri and Kansas. And Missouri is a pretty brutal non-conference slate. They get to play Clemson in 2 weeks, and then they travel to Champaign to face off against another one of their non-conference rivals in Illinois, prior to a loaded SEC slate. Now, it is worth noting that Missouri has the highest-rated player in the entire country. Offensive guard Caden Green is a 98. That's 3 rating points higher than anybody in the nation. Last year, a different rival, Avery Johnson, was atop this list, and now it's Green. Through the first 2 seasons of the series, Green only allowed a combined total of 3 sacks, but he let one get by in the win against Troy this past week. Sam Horn, their starting quarterback from last year, is back, and he is still wearing number 21. Jamal Roberts leads the backfield. Missouri brings back pretty much their exact same group of receivers as they did last year, but they are losing their top defensive player. Cornerback Toriano Pride Jr. led the NCAA with 9 interceptions. He was drafted in the 3rd round by the Browns, and they're going to look to replace him. Cameron Keys, the redshirt sophomore, will take his place as the highest-rated player on the defensive side of the ball. Missouri's an 84 overall. That's 2 rating points less than us. Of course, we beat these guys last year on the road in a thriller, winning that game by 1. And it should be another fun one as we get season number 3 at the Kansas Dynasty underway. Over half of our starters last year are gone. There's a lot of new names that you might not be familiar with yet. It might seem a little bit overwhelming seeing all these new guys, but I'm excited to introduce you to these young players as this game and the early portion of the season goes along. Missouri kicks it off and we are underway. One of the many true freshmen, Ty Lord, will return it, and he is wrapped up a little bit past the 20. A face that we do all know is sophomore quarterback Clyde Poole, who was named one of our 16 captains. I usually like to name 6 seniors, but we barely have 6 seniors on the roster to begin with. First play from scrimmage, Johnny Thompson Jr., the back in the backfield, and he is tripped up for a loss of yardage. Thompson is the most experienced guy in the running back room, but is he the most talented? It's a screen for Law. Whoop! A juke move and a first down for the true freshman, Amani Law. His first reception ends up being a pretty nice play after the catch. 6'2", 96 speed, a really impressive athlete as Poole keeps it on the read option, gets the first down, and is out of bounds past the 50. Clyde Poole with around 1,100 yards on the ground last year, one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the country. Play action for Jazir Tolbert. Poole has Amani Law again with another first down near the 30. Quite the first impression for Law. He can get open. The redshirt freshman Jazir Tolbert has room to the outside. There he goes. Taunts the defender, and he's in for a touchdown. The redshirt freshman Jazir Tolbert with the score, and Kansas leads it 7-0. Tolbert scored once last year in the 4 games he played in. Ironically, it was against Missouri. It was a big touchdown in the second half of that game, and a big reason why we won. Well, here he is again, looking at a much bigger role this year with a really nice move to the outside. And look at this, some showmanship at the end. Quick start to the season for the Kansas offense. Amani Law with a couple of big catches, and Jazir Tolbert with his first carry of the season, taking it to the crib. As we take our first look at the Kansas defense, much like the offense, a very young group with a lot of new faces, as it looks like somebody jumped there for Missouri on third down. A third and manageable becomes a third and long. 3rd and 10 to be specific. Play action. Here's Sam Horn. Hit as he throws incomplete. The junior Dakayas Brinkley hoping for a big year. 17.5 sacks as a freshman, just 4.5 last year. Kansas back with it. That's Thompson in motion. Poole under pressure, and he is sacked. Jeremiah Beasley brings him down. The transfer from Utah, Spencer Fano, is the one who allowed the sack. 3rd and 14. Poole steps up, looks to run for the first down, and he gets it. When in doubt, as long as Clyde Poole has space to run, he'll take advantage for a nice play like that. On 2nd down, it's an RPO. The true freshman running back, Cornell Teamer's first career touch, goes for around 5. Now 3rd and 4. Teamer remains in the backfield. Poole's pass is off the mark, looking for the other true freshman receiver, Rajon Jones. 4th and inches. Offense stays on the field. We're going to go for it. Poole under pressure. Nobody's open. Hit as he throws incomplete. Missouri gets the stop, and they get it back on offense. 2nd and 1 for the Tigers. Horn calls an audible with the receiver in motion. It's a double fake, looking to throw it, and he connects with his man Johnson, who's wrapped up by the 5-star corner, Quantavius Landers, but not before getting a nice gain on the comeback route. Handoff here for Jamal Roberts. He's got room to the right side and will get the first down. Missouri with a slow start on both sides of the ball, but they're looking a lot better over these last couple of minutes. From around the 30, play action again. Horn on the run, looking deep. He's got his man to around the 10-yard line. That one is hauled in by Joshua Manning. Second and goal for the 8. It's Jamal Roberts up the middle, breaking tackles. He's in for a touchdown. I was expecting them to throw the ball. We had some guys playing off farther away from the line of scrimmage. Missouri fools us. They go with the run, and it works. This game is tied at 7. Kansas back with it. The redshirt sophomore Harry Stewart is at running back now. Poole, risky throw up the middle there on 3rd down. It's incomplete. He was looking for Maddox, and Kansas is going to have to punt it away. 3rd and 2 for Missouri. It's an option, and they're going nowhere. Dekias Brinkley brings down Horn for a loss of around 4. And that'll wrap up the first quarter. We're tied at 7. We looked really good in the opening few minutes with the touchdown drive and then the early stop, but things have slowed down since then. A pair of scoreless drives from the offense, and of course allowing a touchdown on defenses. We're going to start here at the 4-yard line. This is Jazir Tolbert again. He had the touchdown earlier, and he loses yardage this time. Now we're backed up at maybe the 3. Number 0, the true freshman, Ty Lord, is in the backfield. Up the middle, it's Mario Maddox with the first down. We got Maddox a couple years ago as a JUCO guy. I think he's going to be a really good receiver for Clyde Poole over these next couple of years as it's Lord to the outside. Gets a block, and look at all that space! Welcome to college football, Ty Lord! Breaks a tackle, and his first career run goes for 64 yards! Wow, what a statement made by the true freshman, Ty Lord. A gain of 64 for his first collegiate carry. Not too bad. Poole scrambles with space to the left side. He will slide at the 5, and Kansas has it near the goal line. Poole looking for the back of the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown. The sophomore tight end, Isaiah Lamore, with the score, and it's 14-7. With pretty much an entirely new group at wide receiver and running back, we're counting on Lamore now as one of the veterans of this offense to produce, and that's a good start to his season. Missouri back with it. They're going to run the ball on 3rd and 4, and they get it. We didn't see it coming, and they're able to get the first down. Following play here for the Tigers at around the 22. They did not start with good field position, as it's Roberts again. Gets another first down where he's wrapped up by a handful of defenders, including the corner Basil Wilson, another one of last year's very few starters who are back this year. 3rd and 18, good coverage deep. Horn dumps it off for the running back, Roberts, who does not get much. Wrapped up by Damani Maxon, one of the veterans and captains of this defense. It's going to be a holding on Missouri. We're going to decline the penalty and have them punt the ball away. Missouri got called for 3 separate holdings on that drive. Not pretty. Funky formation for the Jayhawks on 3rd and 3. Poole looks to throw it, looking for his tight end, Isaiah Lamore, with the first down. And the native of Missouri, he almost went to Missouri, choosing us, the right call. As Jazir Tolbert has it to the outside. Another big run for the redshirt freshman from Overland Park, Kansas, as he's got the Jayhawks in the red zone. A really impressive first half so far from Tolbert, and as these running backs continue to play well, they'll continue to get more touches. The one running back with experience, Johnny Thompson, is the one guy who has struggled so far as he loses yardage there. 2nd and 13, it's a screen for Rajon Jones. His first career reception, he fumbles the ball, but was out of bounds. The booth would reverse the fumble, not that it really changes much, as it's 3rd and 7. Poole scrambles around with it. He's going to have to get rid of this ball, and it's incomplete. That'll bring out the field goal unit. The sophomore Anthony Escalante had his ups and downs last year from 36. It is no good. Wide to the left. Escalante struggled from the hashes last year. And, well, that might be a problem again. This kick is no good. It remains a one-score game. This is the backup tight end, Jordan Harris, with the first down. Makes Santiago Herrera, the true freshman, miss the tackle, as Missouri now has it at the 35-yard line, looking to tie the game here in the second quarter. Sam Horn looks to throw it, looking downfield. He's got his man! Marquise Johnson cooks the freshman, and he's in for the touchdown. It's going to be a learning curve for true freshman Quantavius Landers. There's high expectations on him being a 5-star, the only 5-star on the entire roster, but it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. That's his welcome to college football moment. We're tied at 14. Poole steps up in the pocket, runs for a first down, sliding for a gain of around 15 as Kansas looks to regain the lead. Poole hands it off for Harry Stewart, this sophomore, 98 speed, as he's out of bounds for a solid run. Stewart's explosiveness is something that I'm really excited about being able to use. As on 3rd and 9, wide open, it's the freshman Amani Law. Inside the 25, Law continuing an impressive start to his opening game. On first down with Lord in the backfield, Poole scrambles around, looking with space to run, and he will juke away from the defender, sliding inside the 10. I don't know if you guys saw the backfield, but the left tackle, Spencer Fano, in run blocking, murdered one of their linemen. Here's Lord, tries to make it into the end zone. He's just shy. 1st and goal. This time it's Thompson, the running back in the game. He gets it, shrugs off the defender, breaks another tackle, and he's in. What a play by Johnny Thompson Jr., who's had a pretty underwhelming first half, but that's one way to shift the narrative. It's been a really good game so far. 21-14, Kansas with the lead over Missouri. We have run the ball really well using all of our different running backs. Jazeer Tolbert has been the best of the bunch. He's had a few nice runs so far. Of course, Ty Lord on his first career carry had one go 64 yards. Clyde Poole as well has been impactful on the ground, but I think he's been mediocre through the air. When he's not targeting Amani Law, Poole really hasn't been that good as a passer so far. Defensively, I think we've been pretty solid. Obviously, that touchdown by Marquise Johnson is certainly not ideal. And Missouri, starting with the ball here in the third quarter, will have a chance to tie the game early. On 1st down, Roberts in motion. It's a short throw for Roberts, and he is lit up. Quantavius Landers looking to make up for getting burnt on the previous defensive possession with the big TFL. 3rd and 4. Horn looks to throw it, goes short. It is broken up. Marcus Ashe, the freshman safety, prevents the first down. Kansas back with it, 2nd and inches. RPO for Rajon Jones. His second catch of the game goes for a first down. While Amani Law has been really good, we haven't gotten a lot out of Jones yet, as this is Jazeer Tolbert again. Whoop! Juke move, first down. I think power is the best element of Tolbert's game, but as you can see, he can really move in space. Lord in the backfield now on 3rd down. Poole cannot escape the pressure. He is sacked for a second time today by Jeremiah Beasley. That'll bring back out the field goal unit. Escalante missed one earlier. This kick is up. It is through. And it is a 2-score game. 24-14 as Anthony Escalante makes his first field goal of the year. Missouri back with it. A little bit past the 20 to start this drive. Play action. Horn looks to throw it up the middle with a nice throw. It's Daniel Blood, who had a big punt return touchdown against us last year, winning the rep against Caleb Purdy, one of our defensive captains, a 3-year starter who we're really going to depend on this year as one of our leaders. A nice first down run there by Jamal Roberts. Now a 3rd and 4 here for the Tigers. Horn alone in the backfield. Looking short, it is broken up by Taylor Davis, the junior safety. And Missouri will look to kick with just under 3 minutes to go in the third. It's a 55-yarder for Blake Craig, and it is no good. It had the distance. I thought it was going to squeak in, but it goes wide to the right, and it remains 24-14. Ty Lord in motion on 1st down. He gets it and is roughed up in the backfield. Trahan Greco brings him down for a loss of 2. 3rd down and 8 now from the 40. Poole up the middle. He's got Pepper. Gets by the safety, and nobody's in front of him. 60 yards to the crib for Dorian Pepper. And Kansas adds to the lead. Pepper spraying the Missouri defense. Dorian Pepper, we did not recruit him to be a big play guy, but he's had a few really long touchdowns now. The big one against TCU last year, and now outrunning the defense for a 60-yarder here. Nice throw there by Poole, trusting his receiver to make a play after the catch. And, of course, a great play by Dorian Pepper to make it 31-14. Missouri back with it. Play action. Horn is an open man. It's Jamal Roberts on the wheel route, wrapped up at the 35 by Landers. The redshirt freshman linebacker, Mo Nwokeji, got cooked on that play in coverage. That'll wrap up the third quarter. A pretty good frame for us. We add to the lead, headlined by a 60-yard touchdown by Dorian Pepper. And look at the targets here. Clyde Poole really spreading the wealth around. Amani Law, of course, has caught all 4 of his targets. The other guys have not been as effective. Horn on 2nd and 3, looking deep. He's got Johnson, who is in for a touchdown. And Missouri is back on the board. It looked like one of the defensive linemen, I'm pretty sure that was Dekias Brinkley, was going to have a clear path to the backfield for a sack, but he got baited on the play action, which gives Horn time to throw it, and he gets it to Johnson for his second touchdown of the game. 31-21, Missouri's back in it. Poole connects with Amani Law once again. 5 catches, 91 yards in Amani Law's true freshman debut. 3rd and 10. Poole up the middle, it's caught. That's Maddox, and he gets the first down. Mario Maddox with a nice play. He's had a few nice catches in the short to intermediate part of the field. As on first down, Poole play action, scrambles, runs for the first down as he gets it near the 30. Obviously, our offense is really young, a lot of freshmen and sophomores, but Missouri is clearly overwhelmed by the speed and explosiveness that all these kids have. As Tolbert loses a couple, and that'll make it a 3rd down and 12 for the offense. Poole calls for a switch at the line, looking to throw it. Risky pass up the middle, nearly intercepted. I thought that was a pretty good route by Rajon Jones, but Poole's throw is over the mark. 50-yard field goal try for Escalante is good. The longest kick so far of Anthony Escalante's collegiate career. A 50-yarder that redeems his miss from earlier. And it's 34-21. It does remain a 2-score game, though, so I suppose the door is still certainly open here for Missouri. We'll see if they can make it a 1-possession ball game here on this possession, as it's a 2nd and 4 from around the 31-yard line. Horn will look to throw it. Has time, goes short. It's caught for a first down. Roberts breaks the tackle from Damani Maxon and is out of bounds near the 50. Now a 3rd down and 9 here for Missouri. Of course, they've also got to be mindful of the clock. Horn scrambles to the right. Hit as he throws, incomplete. That was Taylor Davis with the pressure on the safety blitz. 4th and 8, 5.5 to go. Missouri will keep the offense out on the field. Up the middle, it's caught! Daniel Blood creates just enough separation off of Caleb Purdy, and that'll go for a Missouri 1st down. Following play, nearing the red zone. Up the middle, Brett Norfleet, the captain tight end, gets a 1st down now inside the 15, and Missouri is very close to making it a 1-score game. 2nd and 10 with 4 minutes to go. Horn has all day. Now he's under a little pressure. Ball's out, and it's picked up by the defense! Marcus Calvin with the strip sack, recovering his own fumble. And the big man might have just put an exclamation point on this game. Marcus Calvin with a huge play. This brings me back to the fumble last year, forced by Tommy Dunn Jr., recovered, I believe, by Marcus Calvin late in the game against Missouri to help us win it. And now Calvin makes the play here to ice the game with a little pressure as well from Seth Jennings. 3rd and 6, Poole rolls out to the right, looks to scramble, gets the 1st down, and he gets it near midfield. 10 carries, 81 yards, an efficient day on the ground for Clyde Poole. On 2nd down, it's a handoff to the outside. Cornell Teamer, the true freshman from Miami, Florida, is out of bounds past the 25-yard line for a gain of 26. Teamer's been pretty quiet today. I've been waiting for the big run from him, and there it is. Ty Lord in the backfield this time. Whoop! Lord with the juke move, and he is in for a touchdown! What a debut for Ty Lord. He hasn't gotten the ball that often, but when he has been a playmaker. A well-deserved gritty in the end zone. It's 40-21. Wow, what a play there by Lord. Let's look at that one again. I wasn't really sure if his explosiveness would translate to the next level. It's only one game, but man, Ty Lord looks like the real deal so far. And we're going to go for 2. Try to make it a clean 21-point lead. Jazir Tolbert lined to Poole's right. Lord, the running back in the backfield, he gets it, and he caps off his touchdown with a 2-point conversion. It's an octopus. Ty Lord scores all 8 points on that drive, and it's 42-21. Missouri hanging on for dear life. First play from the 25. Horn lobs it up, and it's caught! Marquise Johnson is gone! That's a hat trick, his 3rd touchdown of the game. Obviously, it's not looking good for Missouri, but if they want any chance, I guess that's a good start. Look at all of the separation that Johnson has from the corner by the time he catches the ball. He cooked Quantavius Landers earlier in the game. This time it's the other outside corner, Basil Wilson, and as you can see, it's not even close. That's at least 5 or 6 yards of separation by the time he catches the ball, and then he creates more separation as he takes it for a house call. Onside kick time. This one is going to be recovered by Mario Maddox. So Kansas holds on to the ball. They're going to look to choose some clock and end this game for good. 3rd down and 11. We're just going to run it up the middle. This is Cornell Teamer, and he gets around 2 or 3. So Missouri gets the stop. They'll get the ball back. A good punt, though, from Damon Greaves. Pins them back deep at the 11. Horn looking deep again for guess who? Marquise Johnson! 99 speed coming into good use. An 89-yard touchdown for Johnson, who has been unguardable in this game. 7 catches for 286 yards. That's 41 yards per reception. And 4 touchdowns, 3 of which have come in the fourth quarter. And Missouri makes it a one-score game. This time, it's not only Quantavious Landers who gets burnt, but the safety, Taylor Davis, does not make up ground. And now it's time for another onside kick. Game on the line. Missouri hoping for a miracle. They don't get it. It's Maddox who dives to the ground, and that will do it. Despite Sam Horn and Marquise Johnson's best efforts, the Kansas Jayhawks have won the border war for a second consecutive year. We defeat Missouri in a high-scoring game, 42-35, and unlike last year, we start the season 1-0. Marquise Johnson wins the player of the game, and you know what? I can't complain. He was very clearly the best player on the field today. Even though we won, I'm not going to argue against it. This guy was unbelievable. He cooked Landers twice. He burnt Basil Wilson. Those guys are fast corners. But 99 speed is a different animal. Wow, what a game from Johnson. But it doesn't matter. We won. That's all that matters. We're 1-0. We beat Missouri twice in a row. The biggest positive from this game is the offense, and the biggest negative is the defense. I don't think Clyde Poole had a perfect game, but the biggest thing I can say from him is that he didn't make mistakes. He made good throws when he needed to. He made good scrambles when he needed to. But I think the big story is how he ran the ball. With these 5 running backs, they all had a somewhat even amount of touches, and a few guys really stood out in particular. Ty Lord was fantastic. Even without the 64-yard run, I thought he was really good. Jazir Tolbert got the most carries in the running back room because I thought he was the best overall. Teamer and Stewart were both pretty solid. And then Johnny Thompson, the only guy with experience, was the least impressive. Amani Law is really the guy who stood out at receiver. Dorian Pepper with the 60-yard touchdown. And then otherwise, nobody was all that good. I'm hoping to get the running backs more involved in the passing game. The offensive line, other than Spencer Fano, played well. And then defensively, not great. Only 3 TFLs, only 1 sack. The strip sack by Calvin. And then the coverage in the back end was a complete disaster. We have a bunch of new starters in the secondary. It's going to happen, but man, that was rough. 450-plus yards and 4 touchdowns for Horn. Marquise Johnson, 7 for 286 and 4. Yes, we're not going to see 99 speed receivers every week, but man, that was brutal. Nonetheless, our offense did enough to win this game, and we're going to need more from the defense going forward, but as we expect, it's not going to be an easy year. The offense is very young and very inexperienced, as is the defense. I wouldn't be surprised if we have some games this year that are the opposite, where the defense plays really well and they might get let down by the offense because of the lack of experience on that side of the ball. But both offensively and defensively, there's no shortage of talent and explosiveness. It's just a matter of everybody clicking. The offense did click today. The defense did not. So as we go into week 1, the storyline I'm excited to see is the quarterbacks. Other than Dante Moore, I don't think there's any clear first-rounders right now. Obviously, this year's NFL draft had 6 QBs go in the first round. That won't be the case this year, but we could see some surprises. We'll start with the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. SMU and Tennessee. The Mustangs have made the playoffs 2 years in a row. Tennessee's been disappointing 2 years in a row, but they've got a new signal caller under center. This is Jake Merklinger, who in his starting debut throws for 5 touchdowns, leading Tennessee to, I guess, the upset win over SMU. I think they're better than SMU, but the Mustangs were ranked higher. 48-31 your final. SMU's new starter, Kevin Jennings, throws for 4 touchdowns. He'll probably be pretty good as long as it's not a playoff game in Happy Valley. 6 catches, 4 touchdowns for Carroll. Ashton Cozart was quiet, though. As for Merklinger, he throws for 5 scores, 3 of which were caught by Chaz Nimrod. It would be ironic if once Nico Iame-Leava leaves, that's when Tennessee would start to win. USC facing off against Fresno State. Will Fresno State get an upset here in week 1 for the second year in a row after beating us? And will USC lose their first game for a second year in a row? Short answer, no. I would like to introduce you guys to potentially the next great young quarterback. Sam Onatulu, a lefty for USC, a redshirt freshman who won the starting job over Aiden Childs. who threw for a school record 8 touchdowns in his debut. 69! Nice. To 14 is your final. So I feel like it's a little bit ironic that we have Miller Moss, who threw for 50 touchdowns last year at USC, fall all the way to the 4th round. The NFL did not see him as a good prospect, and his replacement throws 8 touchdowns in his debut. Man, Miller Moss must just not be that good. Maybe he's a scheme merchant. What a game for Sam Onatulu, who certainly puts his name onto the national map now. Texas A&M facing off against the University of Virginia. The Cavs have a 5-star quarterback who will not be starting this year, but there's a lot of optimism with this program, but they're taking on a juggernaut with A&M. Look at this play by Kenny Vega, who's going to be one of their top receivers this year, played a big role for them down the stretch after Noah Thomas's injury. A&M wins a close one, 35-31. I cannot imagine A&M keeps the ranking. They lost so many guys to the NFL. And of course, Texas A&M was able to do some great things with their previous core of guys, making the national championship, nearly winning the whole thing. I do like their new quarterback, sophomore Miles O'Neill. I'm not worried about the quarterback position with this team, but they're obviously losing a lot in wide receiver Noah Thomas. They're losing their top 2 running backs, and they're losing pretty much their entire front unit, plus their best defensive back. I'm excited to see Max Westbrook, the 5-star, get on the field for Virginia at some point, but that day will not be today. Oregon hosting Boise State. The reigning champions who beat Texas A&M in the Natty return home. Expectations are high for Oregon. They retain a lot of their core from last year, including college football playoff MVP Dante Moore. As he finds Jeremiah McClellan in the end zone for a touchdown, Oregon wins it 24-10. The new quarterback for Boise State is Maddox Madsen, replacing the first-rounder Malachi Nelson, drafted by the Giants. I'm curious to see what Boise State looks like now that they don't have an elite quarterback in Nelson, or in year 1, an elite running back with Ashton Jeanty. Dante Moore did not have a bad game, but he wasn't spectacular. I wouldn't really worry about it. He had a slow start last year and then ended up throwing for 40 touchdowns and winning the national championship. It's a big year for Alabama, year 3 in the Kalen DeBoer era. They've got to show something. They've been disappointing 2 years in a row. Why don't we make it a third? What a run by Dunbar, launching defenders to the ground. West Virginia, country roads, take me home. They upset Alabama 38-28. We've got to have a discussion about the Crimson Tide. They were up 28-14 going into the 4th and blew it. Eli Holstein started his career at Alabama, transferred to Pitt, returns to Alabama, wins the starting job over Ty Simpson. He was not great in this game, but I feel like the concern with this Alabama team is bigger. Ever since they hired Kalen DeBoer, they have started off really slowly every year. Season 1, they lost a couple games early. They played better down the stretch, but it was too little too late. Last year, they started off the season slow, made it to the SEC Championship where they lost and missed the playoff because of their slow start. Now they're doing it again. Kalen DeBoer's seat is probably flaming hot, and if they get off to another slow start, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a coaching change because something's got to give. Maybe West Virginia is just randomly really good, but this has been a trend for Alabama now for 3 years. We'll wrap things up with number 1 Clemson, headed to Death Valley, facing off against LSU. Clemson, of course, disappointed that they could not win the national championship last year. They have a very new roster this year, including quarterback Lenoris Sellers, who was with the team last year after transferring from South Carolina. Sellers would win his first game as a Clemson Tiger, 31-25 here over LSU. It's going to be a weird year for Clemson because on one hand, they're probably very disappointed they didn't win the national championship last year with one of the best teams we've seen in this series so far, with the number 1 pick, Cade Klubnik, the number 4 pick, Peter Woods, to the Commanders, the another 7th pick, Avion Terrell, to the Raiders. But look at Oregon. They were the hot shot in year 1. They lost in the playoff. Their team last year was way worse, and they won the national championship. Could that be the case again with Clemson? Some other highlights across the country. Texas with a big win over Texas State. Texas has kind of disappointed me in this series, but I really believe in them this year. They were able to retain a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. We'll see how good they are next week against Ohio State. Kansas State starts their year off with a big win, and then otherwise, no major surprises here. As for the Big 12, I thought our conference had a good week. TCU blows out North Carolina Texas Tech stays competitive with Florida State. Iowa State beats Arkansas. Obviously, West Virginia over Alabama. Georgia Tech beating Colorado isn't a great look, but Georgia Tech's a good program, so it happens. Looking at some other scores across the country, Pitt gets upset by Miami of Ohio. Michigan State loses another early season non-conference game. I feel like we have this conversation every year with Michigan State. They suck early in the year. Obviously, they suck in conference play. I don't know how Jonathan Smith still has a job there. Ohio State struggles with Ball State. They do win. Michigan does not struggle with Western Michigan. They win by nearly 50 points. Miami over South Carolina. Notre Dame, in their first game in the Big Ten, beat Wisconsin, scoring 56 points. The offense was the issue last year for the Irish, who did not make a bowl game. Could things be different this year for Notre Dame as we look at the top 25? And you'll notice, as I expected, we are included, ranked number 22. So it's good to see us back ranked for the first time since, somewhat early last year. Alabama, Virginia, and Boise State drop out. Virginia and Boise State just lost to the two teams who played in the national championship. No shame. It happens. Alabama, on the other hand, not so much. So let's look at the players of the week here. Marquise Johnson wins it on offense. Not a surprise. But Missouri also has the defensive player of the week with Jeremiah Beasley, who had 3 sacks. So they get the offensive player of the week, the defensive player of the week, but most importantly, they don't get the win. No changes in the Heisman race. Noah Fifita still in first. We've got some fun games here in weeks 2 and 3. As I mentioned, I'm really excited about Texas. I'm in on them. They'll be hosting Ohio State. If Arch Manning wants to be a first-round pick, he's got to perform well in that game, in my opinion. And then here in week 3, Miami versus Notre Dame. Miami has a new quarterback, Zion Turner, the transfer from Jacksonville State. Is Notre Dame legit, or was their first game a fraud? USC versus Ole Miss. I'm excited to see more of USC's freshman quarterback. That kid looks spectacular. As for us, on the road against UAB in Florida, 2 really tough games. UAB is a good team, and this is not going to be a get-right game for our secondary. UAB's strength is their receiving core, and we cannot let their receivers take over the game like Marquise Johnson did for Missouri. And then, of course, Florida. I think that goes without saying. That's going to be a tough matchup in the swamp, which is why I scheduled it. I'm excited to see what our guys can do on the road in the SEC. Hope everybody enjoyed. I know we had a lot to go over today, but I hope you guys enjoyed our Week 1 win. Let me know which freshman you are most excited about down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. Rock Chalk.